Hi, everyone. Welcome to Gentle Movement, Yin, and Restorative Yoga. My name is Michelle Chua. For today's practice, have a couple of yoga blocks, at least one pillow, maybe several pillows, a blanket, and a strap. And let's begin in a comfortable seat of your choice. So here's an excerpt from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali about how to maintain a peaceful state of mind. That might be useful. It's from Book 1, Sutra number 33. By cultivating attitudes of friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard toward the wicked, the mind stuff retains its undisturbed calmness. I'll read that one more time. By cultivating attitudes of friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard toward the wicked, the mind stuff retains its undisturbed calmness. You might remember that the first sutra in this book defines yoga as the calming of the fluctuations of the mind. So, yoga offers various tools to find that sense of calm. Now, when you talk about the happy, the unhappy, the wicked, the virtuous, not only people that you encounter, but situations themselves. How do you encounter a situation that is difficult for you, or you might deem sort of wicked in a sense? How might you encounter a situation that feels unhappy? So, our response to the situation or the person or whatever it is that's stimulating our mind is really what provides either a sense of calm or a sense of stress or disturbance. So, it's such an empowering sutra. It reminds us that we have the keys through our awareness and choice. So, I like to think of this yoga physical practice that we spend most of this hour on as sort of a playground, a laboratory to encounter these different aspects. There are parts of our bodies that might be carrying a lot of knots and tensions, and it might feel quite unhappy to encounter that situation. How do we respond to that? How can we bring compassion to the unhappy? How can we bring disregard to the wicked? Having a sense of non attachment and even taking a step back as needed to create a space between stimuli and response. And how do we celebrate what's working for us? So I invite you in this physical practice today to bring in the use of those 4 keys of peaceful mind. So now as you begin, feel the surface below your body, literally what is supporting your physical being, and maybe shift your weight around into that support. As you check in with your own body, notice what sensations might be present or shifting right now. And lifting up through the center of your spine, allow your shoulders to soften back and down, maybe even roll them out a few times as you open up your heart space. And sense the quality of your breathing just as it is for a moment. Notice how that might inform you of your inner state, like your mind, your emotions. And meeting yourself just where you are in these various layers of being. Perhaps join your palms to meet at your heart. And take a moment to clarify what's one quality or trait within yourself that you'd like to amplify or experiment more with through this physical practice. Guiding you into setting your intention. And then call to mind someone else that you might dedicate this practice to as well. And as we share our presence here today, let's join our voices to create resonance chanting 3 ohms. So exhale this breath out. Gather in a deep breath. Breathing in through your nose, fill up the 4 walls of your rib cage, fill up your belly, and like you're fogging a mirror, whisper the breath slowly through the mouth. Feel the bottom of the breath, and then take even slower inhalation, lengthening your spine upright. Empty the breath again, a gentle whisper through the mouth. And this time, inhale fully and hold the breath in for a few seconds at the top, feeling that fullness. And when you're ready to exhale completely and hold the breath for a few seconds at the bottom, feeling the emptiness. And then I invite you, if possible, to continue to breathe with your mouth closed, inhaling and exhaling fully through your nose. And with that, beginning a breath technique called Bhastrika Pranayama, or bellows breath. It's a mind clearing technique that helps to cleanse the lungs as well. So it's done with deep inhalations. We can feel your rib cage expand, your belly expand, so you're using your diaphragm, and then complete equal length exhalations through the nose. Inhaling, exhaling. So you think of your lungs and belly like a bellow, like an accordion, filling up, expanding, and then softening, releasing the air. And so with that, there's actually a physical movement as well. And it goes like this. As we start with the elbows bent and hands like fists, we inhale, raise the arms straight up, spread the fingers wide, and then we exhale, bend the elbows apart and refist the hands to your rhythm of full breaths, somewhat like this. So I'm gonna watch the clock for 1 minute. Do what you can. If you need to start and stop, feel free. So 1 minute practice of bellows breath. So let's prepare and begin. Sitting tall, keeping your shoulders relaxed as much as possible. We're halfway through the minute. And relax. Maybe close your eyes, breathing naturally. Take a moment to observe the effects of that pranayama or breath technique. And let's ease back into long inhales through the nose and equally long exhales through the nose, while softly narrowing the back of your throat so you can listen for a gentle, smooth whispering sound. This is the practice of Ujjayi Pranayama, victorious breathing, which helps to regulate a state of balance and calm in your nervous system while warming up your body from the inside, preparing it to move. And with that, let's come down to lie on your back. Lying on your back, bend your knees into your chest. And to the sound rhythm of your own breath, begin to rotate your thighs apart and back together, circling your femur heads in your hip sockets several times to warm up the hip joints. And to even give your lower back a massage against the ground. Inhaling, exhaling. As you feel ready, switch directions. Let the sound of your breath, which might sound like gentle ocean waves, offer your mind soothing ease for your body. Let's take about 5 more cycles of breath. Maybe switch up the movement of your legs. And then from here, step your feet on the ground. Please take one of your blocks and by the skinniest width, hug that block right between your thighs firmly as we prepare to move in and out gently in bridge pose. We're going to use the inhales to lift the pelvis. Doesn't have to be your ultimate height, just a gentle lift, and then the exhale to slowly lower the upper back, middle back, and tailbone. But first set it up so that as you extend your arms down by your sides, you can locate your feet, walking them back where you could almost touch your heels with your fingertips, but not quite that close. And as your feet are parallel, space them as wide apart as your knees. Round the backs of your shoulders and tilt your chin slightly away from your chest. And then prepare to lift up. We'll take 5 rounds of moving bridge, 1 breath each. On an inhale, tilt your tailbone up and stretch the fronts of your thighs forward, lifting your back, opening your chest. And at your pace, use an exhalation to carefully lower your upper back, middle back, then tailbone. Take this another 4 rounds of breath. Keeping your throat open. This is a great posture to help not only open up your front body, including the front of your shoulders, but to help expand your lungs and increase your capacity for inhalations. Feel your feet plugging into the earth, spreading your weight through the 4 corners of each sole. And then you might be at around your 5th round now, so that'll be the last moving bridge pose. And when you finish that, lowering your pelvis, put the block aside. And separate your feet on the mat wider than hips distance. Inhaling, drop both knees to the right. Exhaling, both knees to the left. Like windshield wipers moving in the same direction. Several more. Slowly to your breath. Nice, and then take that block once again, and as you press your feet into the floor, slide the block by the lowest height across your mat underneath your sacrum, the flat part of your lower back, making sure it's stably supporting you here and it feels comfortable where it's not digging in up high towards your rib cage or too low towards the bottom of your glutes. And then start with your feet hips width apart again, then bend your right knee into your chest, catching hold of your right thigh or your shin. Notice how your groins and your right hamstring feel right now. If they feel okay with it, curl up your left toes to flex your left foot and begin to slide your left leg forward as you keep the heel on the floor to whatever degree of straight, doesn't have to be completely, is comfortable for you. Taking a few breaths, rolling out the right foot at the ankle. Breathing in, breathing out, slow and steady breaths. Notice that you can feel the backs of your two shoulders evenly on the ground, nicely spaced away from your ears. And then circle your right foot in the opposite direction. If your left leg is straight, press the mound of your left big toe forward and try to keep the left kneecap pointing straight up towards the sky rather than turning out the leg. Let's take another 2 deep breaths here. Then step your right foot on the ground. Bend your left knee into your chest, catching hold of your left thigh or shin. Notice how your groins and left hamstring feel. Maybe explore sliding the right leg forward, keeping the heel on the floor as you curl the right toes up and back. Now, if you're completely straining your right leg, press the mound of your right big toe forward and try to keep your right kneecap pointing straight up towards the sky. Now let's circle the left foot for several breaths. Switch directions. Last couple of breaths. And then set your 2 feet on the ground, lift your pelvis to remove the block from underneath, and bend your 2 knees into your chest. Open your arms wide apart on the ground like a T to prepare for a supine spinal twist. So as you keep both shoulders on the earth, you might scoot your pelvis for a moment, another 3 to 4 inches closer to the right edge of your mat. Then perhaps looking over your right shoulder to stretch your neck. Start to drop your knees both to your left side. You can also opt to place a prop underneath your outer left thigh to prevent the right shoulder from rising off the ground. Let's take about 10 slow breaths here. As a practice of mindfulness, you might imagine your breath starting at the base or bottom of your spine, and as you inhale, the breath rises up through each vertebra to your crown. And as you exhale, the breath descends from your crown slowly down to your tailbone. If you'd like to stretch the lower back more deeply in this pose, place your left palm onto your right outer hip and gently press away your right outer hip, tilting it towards the front of your mat slightly. And we're down to 3 more breaths here. Let's gently roll back to center. Bring your pelvis to the midline of your mat. And as you ground your left shoulder, maybe turning your head to look towards it, perhaps scoot your pelvis now a little closer to the left edge of your mat. Then begin to drop your knees to your right side. And if it helps, you can place a prop just under your outer right thigh to catch your legs. 10 breaths here. You might visualize inhaling up your spine and exhaling down your spine. And if your lower back needs a bit more stretch, you can place your right palm onto your left outer hip and gently press it away towards the front edge of your mat. Let's take one more deep breath here. And from here, please turn over to your right side. Begin to press the ground away with your hands and slowly lift your torso upright. Have your props near the front edge of your mat for later as you crawl onto hands and knees facing the front. So set your knees on the ground a couple inches behind your hips. Set your wrists just under your shoulders. Spreading your fingers wide. Let's begin a few cat-cows. As you inhale, glide your chest through your upper arms, coiling it up as you look up. Exhale, contract your belly, rounding your back as you drop your head. Several more times. Inhale the chest forward, dropping the shoulders behind you. Exhale, the belly lifts as you tuck your tailbone. If you're seeking a little more stretch in the lower back as well, you might tuck your toes as you're rounding and dropping your head, and maybe even pause in this cat pose for a few breaths. Taking your time to feel the full extent of cat and of cow, of in-breath and out-breath. Let's continue for about 5 more rounds of breath. Then bring the inner edges of your feet together to touch and sink your pelvis down to your heels in child's pose with arms extending forward, forehead to the ground or onto a folded blanket. To feel your fingertips reaching towards the front edge of your mat while your shoulders and hips slide back. We're here for about 4 more deep breaths. Notice what you're feeling in your body right here. Are there any areas of so-called unhappy, like we talked about, those 4 keys to mind, mental peace, or areas that seem happy? Where might you offer compassion and perhaps the reassurance of your breath? As you continue to melt your heart towards the earth below, staying low to the ground, please crawl your hands slowly over to the right. Stretching into the left side of your torso as you tack your left outer hip back. And maybe visualize breathing a little deeper into your left lung, helping to stretch the intercostal muscles between your ribs. Now, if available, you might even step your left palm on top of your right palm. And notice how that feels. Let's take another 5 deep breaths here. Take your time to begin walking your hands through center again, and now reaching over to the left. Feel your breath, especially into the right wall of your rib cage. As you draw your right outer hip towards the rear of your mat. Maybe explore stepping your right palm onto your left. Let's take another 5 deep breaths. And then slowly walk your hands through center and then back beside your knees. Separate your knees at least hips distance apart. And then tucking your toes, start to rise into a standing forward fold at the rear of your mat. Parallel your feet and bend your knees so much that your belly could easily rest onto your thighs. Letting your head drop, you might shake it a few times. Nod at yes a few times to help unpack any tension residing along your neck and even your shoulders and jaw. One of my trauma-informed yoga instructors, trainers, calls these the muscles of social interaction, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. Notice what resides there today. Let's flutter the lips a couple of times. Breathe in deeply, and then let your lips flutter. One more. Don't even let out any sound that wants to move through you. That's a great way to rinse any stuck energy. And catch on to opposite elbows with your hands. Keep your knees very bent. Start to sway your spine gently side to side. A slow pendulum. Let your head completely fall, but at the same time, lighten up your shoulders so they rise away from your neck. Maybe make some silly faces here, stretching the muscles in your face. Notice what facial expressions are highly imprinted for today. Let's switch the cross of your arms, leaning your weight towards the front of your heels. Feel your breath expand into all of the backside of your body. Calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, your back, your neck. Let's take an audible exhale here. Deeply inhale. And then through the mouth, let it go. Release the arms, shimmy out your shoulders, bend your knees a little more. And on your next in-breath, take your time slowly rolling your spine upright, stacking one vertebra at a time, and lifting your head last. And let's walk up to the top of your mat. Have your blocks framing your feet, blocks on their tallest height. Feet hips distance apart, parallel. Let's move to the breath again just to warm up the lower body a bit more. As you inhale, circle your arms overhead. Watch your palms touch. As you exhale, hinge from your hips, bending your knees any amount so your spine can truly lengthen. Press your fingertips on your legs or the floor and inhale, lift your chest, lengthening your spine parallel to the ground. Exhale, bow in towards your legs again. From down to your feet, inhale, circle your arms overhead, rising to the top. Then as though blessing yourself and your body, trace your palms in prayer down your center line. Let's take that half sun salutations 3 more cycles to your breath. Inhale, sweep your arms overhead. Exhale, dive into a forward fold. Inhale, press with your hands to rise forward. Exhale to bow again. Root into the earth and inhale, expand and rise. Exhale, palms together, tracing your midline. Twice more. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, fold. Inhale, rise to the top. Exhale, down your center. Last one, listen to your breath. Nice. And this time, please take your strap. And as you're standing in mountain pose, hold the strap behind your back between your hands so that your thumbs are pointing to the outsides rather than your midline. Separate your hands as wide apart as needed so that you can lift your hands at least a foot, maybe even further away from your lower back. And then as you parallel your feet again, roll your shoulders back, inhale, look up, bend your knees generously, and exhale, tilt your weight towards the front of your heels and bow, completely dropping your head as we take a few breaths, stretching your arms away from your lower back with a slight bend in your elbows to help lift your shoulder bones away from your neck. Listen to your breath here. Now, if available, you could also clasp your hands. About 3 more breaths. And then please lower your fingertips onto your blocks that are framing your feet, blocks on their tallest height. Press into the blocks, lift your chest, inhale, look forward. Cross your right foot in front of your left foot over to the left side. So you're standing cross-legged for a forward fold. Bend your right knee, which is your front knee, slightly. Keep your left leg generally straight. And as you tilt your weight towards the front of your heels, keep the feeling of a flat back as you fold in. Let's take about 7 breaths here. Notice where you might feel more sensation. Notice the quality of those sensations. Is there movement to them? Is there any shifting around? And then notice your response. Notice how your mind reacts to them. And perhaps reference your keys for mental peace again. Pinpoint an area in your body where you might feel the most sensation here and target your next deep inhalation there in your mind's eye. After you completely exhale, press your fingertips on the blocks and inhale, lift your chest forward to switch the cross of your legs. So the left foot steps over to the right side, bending your left knee slightly. Keep your right leg generally straight. Then inhale, lift your chest forward. Exhale, begin to hinge from your hips. About 7 breaths here. Notice what you sense on this side. As you witness whatever thoughts may arise, come back each time to the seat of observer, remembering that you don't have to believe every thought that comes up. It's like you're watching a movie. And let's take one more deep breath here. Pinpoint an area in your body where you might target that breath. And once you've completely exhaled, uncross your legs and inhale to lift the chest forward again. Look forward. Exhale, please step your left knee to the ground behind you in a kneeling lunge. So with your legs hips width apart and your front knee bent just over the heel. Take a deep inhale, allow your pelvis to sink. Keep your back knee on the ground. We'll go into a slow flow here. Exhale, curl up your right toes and scissor your right hip back to whatever degree you can straighten your right leg as you bow to the inside of it. Inhale, rebend your front knee just over the heel, sinking your pelvis. Again, exhale, curl up your right toes, straighten the right leg and fold. Keep going for about 3 more cycles of breath at your own pace. And when you finish the last round of straightening the front leg, rebend your front knee, tuck the back toes, and step the left foot forward to fold. Inhale, lift your chest again, look forward. Then exhale, step the right knee back, kneeling lunge. Inhale in your lunge, sinking your pelvis. Exhale, curl up your left toes and scissor your left hip back to whatever degree you can straighten the leg and bow to the inside of it. Inhale, rebend the front knee just over the heel. Exhale again, straighten the leg and bow. As you listen to your breath, keep going for another 3 cycles. And when you finish your last round, straightening the leg, come back to your lunge, put the blocks aside and step back onto hands and knees. Let's take 5 breaths, just shifting the pelvis around, maybe swaying the hips to the left, to the right, just feel into organically where your body wants to move, maybe circling the hips laterally, perhaps sinking through child's pose or moving the head as well. Listen to your breath. So make sure you have blankets, pillows, reachable towards the towards the front of your mat, and then come back to hands and knees. We're going to prepare for single pigeon pose. Turning out your right thigh at the hip, slide your right shin in front of your pelvis across your mat. Straighten your left leg behind you and tuck the toes, come down to sit. Then place your hands alongside your hips to lift your pelvis and scissor your right hip back, your left hip forward. Enough so that your 2 frontal hip bones are evenly facing the front of your mat. Now, if you find that there's a gap between the floor and your right glute, take whatever props can comfortably fill that gap to keep your hips leveled. If your right shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat, make sure to support your knee by flexing the right foot the entire pose. And then untuck your back toes. Inhale, lift your chest. Now you could stay upright, or breath by breath, you might ease into a forward fold in which you might grab your pillows to bear hug or to prop your forearms or forehead on. Or you might find a spinal twist available in Thread the Needle. So if you're exploring that, bend your right elbow towards the sky and crawl your right fingertips towards the upper right corner of your mat. Then slide your left arm underneath your right bent to elbow with your left palm face up until you could lower the left side of your head onto the ground or onto a prop like a block. See what works for you. And in whatever variation of single pigeon pose you've landed in, take a moment to scan your body. Can it stay relaxed here for the next 2 minutes of this pose? If not, see whatever props you can use to support your body in a position where you can relax into stillness, not have to shift around. And here we are. Breathe in. Breathe out. Notice what you encounter. In this playground of our asana practice, we have a more tangible experience of putting these mental tools to use. For those of you that arrived a little earlier in this class, I'll repeat that short sutra that I keep referencing. 4 keys to peace. By cultivating attitudes of friendliness for the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard toward the wicked, the mind stuff retains its undisturbed calmness. Are there postures in yoga that you might have an aversion to mentally? Are there postures that you welcome so easily? Let's finish another 3 slow breaths right where you are before you begin to move back to hands and knees. Taking your time. When you arrive at all fours again, you might take a moment to lift the right leg behind you and shake out the leg gently or circle it at the hip. Any kind of movement to invite more blood flow into that hip socket we were just focusing on. As you feel ready, from hands and knees, turn out your left thigh at the hip and slide your left shin across your mat in front of your pelvis. Straighten your right leg behind you and tuck the toes, placing your hands alongside your hips. Lift your pelvis and scissor your left hip back, your right hip forward, and notice if it might be helpful to place a prop under your left glute. If your left shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat, make sure to flex your left foot here. Then relax the top of your right foot on the floor, breathe in and lift your chest. You might stay upright, you might start to bow forward, whether or not using props to support your torso. And if you enter the spinal twist, thread the needle on the first side. Here's the second side. Bend the left elbow towards the sky and crawl your left fingertips towards the upper left corner of your mat. Then slide your right arm underneath your left bent elbow with the palm face up, lowering the right side of your head onto the ground or onto a prop. And then once you land in that variation you've chosen, take a moment to scan your body. How is it receiving this pose? And how might you compassionately support your body to receive it with love? Coming back to your breath. We're here for 2 minutes. So if you can hear the mantra that's been playing, Ramadasa Sase Soham. It's translated to sun, moon, basically the elements of nature, and acknowledging that we are one, infinity, I am. Finish another 3 deep breaths here before you start to move back to hands and knees. Take your time. When you return to all fours, allow a moment to move your left leg at the hip. Encourage some blood flow. And from here, let's take our 2 blocks. We'll set them up, and you might even want to use your pillow as well. So set up your blocks, one at the tallest height at the rear edge of your mat, the second at the medium height crossing your mat. And if you want even more support, so it's not so deep, because we're gonna actually have our legs like this to some degree in hero's pose, then you could also put a pillow to make it more like a reclining chair. So let's begin sitting there on your shins with your toes pointed back, if your knees are okay with it. If you're needing a less bend in your knees, you could take your blanket, fold it as thick as you need support. So the thicker, the more support for the knees, and place the blanket right up against the backs of your knees. And then that will require the knees to bend less. Now, if your knees are okay with sitting straight onto your calves, you might also try using your hands to gently move the calves aside and instead sit all the way on the floor between your ankles. Then see that your knees are no wider than hips distance apart. If you're not using the blanket or anything, you might also use it as weight on your thighs and hips, because we're going to open up into the quadriceps, the front muscles of the thighs, as well as the chest. And then taking your time, hands alongside your hips, lift your frontal hip bone slightly and elongate your tailbone downward. So try not to tilt the tailbone back. As you start to lean back, if it's available, maybe staying upright is completely plenty of sensations happening. If you are leaning back, mindful not to overarch the lower back. So continue to lift the frontal hip bones and lengthen the tailbone down and forward. Now you may or may not arrive at the props you've set up behind you. See what's available as you move through each breath. We'll pause through each breath. And we're gonna be here for 3 minutes, a little bit longer. Some of you might find that the pillow is a bit too high and you want to go a little further into the back bend. Then you can move the pillow aside and land right onto the block so that the area right under your shoulder blades lands on the lower block and the back of your head lands on the further block. And if you've done the latter variation and you're feeling like, I think I could open my chest and the fronts of your thighs a little bit more, then you could tilt the block that's under your head to 1 or more steps lower. Some of you might remove the blocks altogether and lie flat on your back. And then again, notice what you encounter here in the scenario of your physical body. And how might those keys to peace come into use? And we're down to 1 last minute here. Check in with your breathing. last breath or two before you begin to lift your torso if you're lying back. Be mindful in your transition out of this pose. It can be quite intense, so take your time with a few breaths to slowly make your way onto hands and knees again, where you can take a moment to straighten one leg back and tuck the toes, offering the back of your knees a release. And then switch the opposite leg back, tucking your toes. Let's come on down to sit with the legs in front. Bending your knees apart, bring the soles of your feet together for bound angle pose. Catching hold of your big toes or your outer feet. You could also use a strap around your outer feet as an extension of your arms if that helps you to lengthen your spine more. Then press down through your sitting bones, breathe in, elongate through your spine, open your throat and chest. Exhale, start to hinge forward from your hips. We're here for just about 5 to 7 breaths. You might also opt to walk the hands forward. Inhale, lead with your chest to slowly rise. And let's extend the legs straight ahead for a seated forward fold. Separate your feet hips width apart and flexed. And if you'd like to use your strap around the balls of your feet, make sure that you're giving yourself enough slack to be able to relax the shoulders. Inhale, root down into the surface below to lift up to your spine. Exhale, begin to hinge forward from your hips. About 5 to 7 breaths. Some of you might opt to hold the backs of your legs or to clasp your big toes. Just make sure you're keeping your throat open and lengthening the back and front of your neck. Leading with your chest, inhale to slowly rise. Now take a look around and gather whatever props you may need to set your body up in stillness for the next 5 minutes of Shavasana. We're actually going to stay lying down for the next 5 minutes after that for our meditation practice, which will be a body scan. So make sure that you are comfortably set up. If you want to use a blanket, if you want to cover your eyes with something, if you want to prop the backs of your knees on a pillow, let the legs separate so your feet are a little wider than your hips apart. You might turn the palms to face up, slightly away from your sides, and let the shoulders glide down your back. Feel into your neck. Find a neutral position where your throat is open, allowing for your breath to flow easily. And then once you've found that position of rest, close your eyes. Take a deep inhale as though you could breathe into your entire body. Through your mouth, slowly empty your breath and drop right in Shavasana. As you continue to rest in stillness, lying down, we'll begin our 5-minute meditation there with a body scan. So allowing your eyes to remain closed and your body to remain still. Sense the subtle, natural flow of your breath moving in and out. Sense the points of contact between your physical body and the surface below it. And now begin to highlight different parts of your body just by naming them. And what I invite you to do with each part is to encounter whatever sensations or felt sense might reside there in the moment, as well as witness any reactions of your mind to those sensations or felt sense. So increasing our bodily awareness and increasing our awareness of our mind and allowing space to feel the relationship. Let's begin. Notice your skull, the front of your head, your face, mentally scanning the area. The back of your head, sensing any sensations. The left side of your head, your ear, your jaw, the right side of your head, your ear, your jaw. Notice your chest across your collarbones, left shoulder, right shoulder. Scan down the front of your torso to your stomach, to your pubic bone at your pelvis. And from the back of your neck, sense your shoulder blades, gliding your attention down your back to your lower back and glutes. Let's bring the attention to your left arm, scanning down to your left elbow, forearm, wrist, and hand. Then sense your right arm down to your right elbow, right wrist, right hand. And glide your awareness down to your left leg, your thigh, front, back, sides, down to your knee and shin, your ankle, and your foot. Then slowly transition your inner gaze to your right thigh, front and back, inner side and outer side, to your knee, down to your shin, ankle, and foot. And bring a whole body awareness, noticing your physical state overall. And as you gently begin to deepen your breath, ease your attention from inside to outside, from your inner world to your outer world, beginning to hear the sounds in your room or space near and far, feeling the temperature of the air, and becoming more aware of your surroundings again as you slowly transition out of your meditation. Feel free to stay longer lying down if you choose. Otherwise, slowly turn to one side and gently rise up into a comfortable seat to close. With palms meeting at your heart, bow in towards your inner guidance. And let's close with one chant of Om. Take a deep breath. Om. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.